All right, you guys. So this is video number 2, really video number 3, if you include the introduction. But the video number 2, in the sense that you should have received an email. The first one's going to be a circuit, that you can do while I'm away. That's just body weight. This one's going to be if you have a dumbbell or a pair of dumbbells. I'm going to really cater this towards if you have a single dumbbell, but if you have a pair, I'll show you those options as well. And really, if the criteria is the dumbbell has to be challenging enough for you to press it and pull it. For ladies, really 8 to 12, maybe for those of you who are really strong, like a 15. For fellas, basically 15 to 25. And you want to be able to just manage that dumbbell well. My philosophy, less is more, especially right now. You're just trying to maintain. The outline of the circuit or layout of the circuit is the same as the body weight. We're going to do a bilateral or two-legged exercise. In this case, it's going to be a squat or a deadlift. I'll show you kind of some variations. A bench press, dumbbell bench press. Again, nothing new for you guys. A single leg exercise, just like with the body weight stuff. We're just going to add load to it, and then therefore a row. And then we'll do the same core exercise, which is really just a march. And it's, again, for core, for most of us, is can you manage your control over your ribs and pelvis, and really your head and neck as well? Can you manage this neutral spine while breathing and while moving the limbs, right? So that's kind of how we'll address your core stuff. All right, well, hey, let's dive on in. Just a reminder, we're going 10 to 15 repetitions roughly. If it's really heavy, maybe you go 8 to 10, but 10 to 15 roughly. Again, you want to let your breathing normalize in between exercises. So let yourself rest and recover, right? Let your breathing normalize, then move on to the next exercise. Just as a way to kind of lay this out, if you're doing this multiple times, what you can do, and what I'll often do in these kind of circuits that I do the same thing when I'm traveling, very much the same stuff as I'm showing you right now. It's simple, and it works. All you're trying to do is maintain. But the way that you can lay out the volume or how many times you do the circuit is if you're doing it multiple days in a row, or multiple days throughout the week. What you can do is day number 1, maybe you do 3 circuits. Keep it real simple. Maybe day number 2, you do, you make it more challenging and you do 4 to 5 circuits. And then maybe day number 3, you do like 2 circuits. And then you can alternate. You can do a little pattern like that, but you create that variation and it'll give you a little bit of, it kind of breaks it up a little bit, and it has a different kind of training stimulus in the body. All right, you guys, well, let's dive on in. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to start off with a goblet squat. Just like, with the body weight, here we're just adding a little bit of load. Most of you know this stuff already. Heels outside, shoulder width apart, feet slightly turned out, right? We're going to stack the ribs and hips. We're going to think knees forward and out so the hips can drop down and back. Start the inhale, feel the expansion, lower into position, exhale, drive up. Start the inhale, feel the expansion, knees forward and out, drive through the feet to stand tall. Now, for those of you who feel like you're a little maybe concerned about balance, stability, right? You can always do a box squat, right? Start the inhale, feel the expansion, lower into position, exhale, drive up. Again, the thing that you can do here as well is come all the way down. Especially if you have any knee stuff going on. Sometimes it's helpful even to pick up the heels because that just disengages the hamstring muscles. It takes some of the tension off of the knee. The other variation of this that you can do is especially if you have any knee stuff going on, you can always switch how we're loading this and make it more of a deadlift. In this case, taking the dumbbell out in front, right? really with the like a kettlebell deadlift, you're still kind of keeping that squat stance, maybe a little bit more narrow, but not much. The only thing that's different is instead of allowing the knees to go forward and out, we're going to send the hips back. So again, start the inhale, feel the expansion, send the hips back, exhale, drive up. Send the hips back, exhale, drive up. Now, for those of you who have two dumbbells, a variation you can do of this is, right, we can do double dumbbells in front, Romanian style deadlift. And those of you who have done this before, feel free to play around with this. Right here, again, we're just going to go a little bit more. The stance is more narrow. Think outside, heels outside hip width, feet turned in more of a parallel position. The dumbbells are going to be right there in line with the thighs. So, and from here, because it's even more of a hinge, keep thinking hips back. The tendency sometimes is to squat it, bend the knees. Notice how the dumbbells start to go forward. You want your arm to be flush or plumb or parallel with the floor the entire time. So I'm going to release the knees, but I'm going to send the hips back. Notice how my arms are staying perpendicular to the floor the entire time. Driving through the feet to stand tall. All right, you guys. So that's your your bilateral or two leg exercise. Now, number two, we're just going to do a press, and you guys have all done some kind of variation of this. It's going to be, and you know your variation. So if you got two dumbbells and you want to do just your classic good old dumbbell bench press, right? Pressing through the floor, arching in the back, lifting through the chest. Lower on down, little pause. Exhale, press up. Lower on down, little pause. Exhale, press up. Obviously, you can do that if you only have one, right? You can do a single arm variation. Now you're having to use your core and your glutes, if your feet are pressing into the floor, to keep your body from rotating. For some of you, we have your feet up. The big thing here is, especially if it's low back is an issue, right? Maybe you put a little tuck in the pelvis. Again, start the inhale, feel the expansion, lower into position. Notice though, the only problem when your feet are up, you're not going to be able to get that lift through your sternum. That's going to have an effect on the front of your shoulder. So you may just need to limit this range of motion to really no more than 90 degrees at the elbow, or where your elbow stays in line with the shoulder, no further. Again, you obviously can do two if you have two dumbbells here. All right, now just make sure when you get out of this, you want to get out safely. So for those of you who can, you can always bring the knees up and then rock up, right? If it's just too much, dump the bells, right? Just get rid of it. The thing is don't let it go out to the side. That's going to jerk your shoulder. Think drop straight down. Your elbow bends this way, right? Not this way. So, right, drop straight down to get rid of those dumbbells. Also, for some of you, this may be too much, especially, if you need some assistance or if we use the table. Now, if that's the case, you may prefer to do an incline. Even a little bit of an incline is easier to get out of, right, than a flat bench. All right, moving on. So the next thing we're going to do, just like with the body weight variation, we're going to do a single leg. And again, just like I mentioned in the body weight circuit, we often step ups are so undervalued. If you have a step, some kind of footstool that's sturdy, right, or a stair, it's amazing what you can do. And it's amazing how effective it can be. If you have pretty short risers, you can always take 2 steps at a time. But we can load it with your dumbbells. Now, I like to load the foot that's on we call it ipsilateral, but the same hand, same foot, right? Also, make sure you're hinging. Sometimes the tendency is to kind of propel the body up. Hinge that little bit forward, right? Think hinge into it, heel ball toe to bring the body up, right? As opposed to sometimes the tendency is to and push off that back leg. You want to push off that front leg. You want heel ball toe. Notice if your toes are starting to lift, right? You want those toes to stay nice and flush to press on up. Also, feel free to play around with what hand you're loading with. If it feels unstable, if you start to feel something in your knee or your hip, try switching the hands, all right? And see if that makes a difference. It's going to change how it's being loaded through your hip. So, right, step up, that's one variation. The other thing that's important here is let your breathing normalize from one leg to the next. The tendency sometimes is to go right into the next one. Let your breathing normalize from one side to the next. Just like I mentioned in the body weight, another variation. The next variation, if you want to make this maybe to a certain extent a little more challenging, is to do a rear lunge. The big thing here is when you step back and down, and you go down, make sure that your heel's not coming up. That front heel is not lifting, right? You want to step far enough back, keep that front heel grounded. That's going to give you access to your glutes. Same idea, if you find that it's bothering you in some way, try changing how you're loading. If it's bothering your knee, maybe you need to hinge a little bit more. If it's bothering your hip or your back, maybe we need to keep you a little bit more upright. The last variation, as you guys all know, or most of you know, is good old Bulgarian split squats, right? Same thing, I like to load the foot that's on the floor. I like the kettlebell in that hand. That might not be the case for you. There's a few of you, we switch it up, and it may be different on each side. If your knee's bothering you, we may want to have you hinge a little bit more, right? And keep that kettlebell or dumbbell in front, right? Those you know who I'm talking about, right? If it's bothering the front of your knee, that's what we want to do. Your left side may be different. We may have you squatting more on your left side, right? And hinging more on your right side. The hinge is going to take it out of is more likely to take it out of your knee. The squat is more likely to take it out of your back or your hip. Regardless, how you set up is really important. You want the knee of the elevated leg to be just a little behind the knee of the foot that's on the floor. I hope that makes sense. But notice how you can see the back of my thigh on my right leg as opposed to here. Now they're parallel with each other. That's too narrow. I want to be a little bit out in front. All right. Again, 10 to 15. Make sure you're resting in between exercises. The next thing we're going to do, and this can be a little challenging, is we're going to do a bench row. Now, many of us have done a couple of different variations of these. In the gym setting, I often opt for other options to work the muscles in your back just because we have, there's exercises that provide, I think, in my opinion, greater benefit with less risk. But this is an option and that you can use at home. Again, if you have a dumbbell and you have a bench or even two chairs that you can set up, we're going to do a bench row, right? So I've got knee on the bench, thighs are in line. This palm is going to come underneath that shoulder. I'm going to maintain a neutral spine. If anything, a little bit of a lift through the sternum, right? I'm going to start off shoulders back and down, elbow in, like any row that we do, right? Shoulder back and down, elbow in, or shoulder blade in the back pocket, elbow into the front pocket. Little pause at the tops. Make sure you're not here, right? But you're here. Shoulder blade in the back pocket, elbow in the front pocket. Again, especially if that weight's a little on the light side, that isometric contraction or the pause at the top, that little squeeze is going to be really important. Otherwise, you could do this all day long. right? With momentum, not a big deal, especially if that weight's light. If that weight's heavy, it's a great way to kind of jack up your upper neck and shoulder. All right, so same thing, 10 to 15. Just watch your position. The tendency, again, sometimes is also to just kind of bad positioning. You want a little bit of a lift through that sternum. If anything, a little bit of this exaggeration like we do with your bench press and so forth. All right, and just watch that shoulder position. Also, the tendency is to over-rotate, right? Pull that elbow up too high, let the shoulder roll forward. Shoulder blade in the back pocket, elbow in the front pocket. Remember, you're trying to get that lat to engage. The last thing we're going to do in this series is the same thing we're doing in your body weight exercise. And I think, again, it's one of these things that is so undervalued and underestimated and is really important. Oh, I put the little pad over there. Just use this. And that is a march. Nothing new for you guys, right? What we're going to do is, and for most of us, having a little something underneath your head and neck is helpful because it'll optimize your head and neck alignment, right? So we're going to stack the head and neck, stack the ribs and hips. You're going to make that C in reverse C, right? We're going to find your low ribs. We're going to slide the hands down to your waist. At first, we just want to see, number one, can you maintain that alignment? Number two, can you breathe into this ring, the C that you're creating with the thumb and index fingers? Number one, can you feel that expansion into the thumb and index fingers? It's often going to be easier to feel it in the index fingers, but can you feel it into the thumb as well? Then, once you have this, add that tension exhale that we often do. Silent, slow, and smooth. Nice full inhale in through the nose. Feel the expansion. Exhale like you're letting air out of a tire. Silent, slow, and smooth. Nice full inhale in through the nose. Exhale like you're letting air out of a tire. And what you're trying to sense is that pushback of that core musculature. Now, if you want to challenge this a little further, right? Start the breath, feel the expansion. Lift the foot, exhale lower. Start the inhale, feel the expansion. Lift the foot, exhale lower. How smooth can you make this? The tendency is, as you go to lift, is to let that back arch, let that back go, right? Let the ribs and hips flare. That's what you're trying to avoid, right? Don't let that back arch, don't let that ribs flare. Now, if this is pretty easy, take both feet up, right? Same thing, stack the head and neck, stack the ribs and hips, start the inhale, feel the expansion, exhale, slower, tap the heel, start the breath, feel that expansion all the way around, lift the foot, nice and smooth, exhale, lower the opposite. Again, you're trying to challenge your ability to maintain alignment, stack ribs and hips, maintain that nice, full, deep diaphragmatic breath, silent, slow, and smooth, nice full inhale, maintain the expansions, and then control and maintain that on the way down. All right. So I hope this is helpful. If you have any questions or if you needed a little bit more geared towards you, you're not quite sure about something, please don't hesitate to reach out. Be more than happy to address it. You can always send me videos too. Love to see them. Love to know how you're doing. All right, you guys, I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Don't hesitate to reach out. Aloha.